Welcome to Pint with Seaniebee, coming to you on a sunny summer's day in the Ivy Club in the centre of London. We're in a nice little room called the Library, courtesy of my guest who's a member here. He is a man who is a advertising legend. I knew of him. Legend, yeah. Those of you who are listening who don't know about the ad industry, it kind of fractured in the late 80s, and he was one of the people behind a very innovative company called PhD. And welcome, Jonathan Durden. How are you, sir?
I'm all right, thank you. I'm fine.
You're alive.
I'm alive.
You happy?
Well, you know what? Life rarely lines out, and if you wait for all the ducks to be in a row, then you'll probably be happy 3 times in your life. You know, you have to compartmentalise a little bit.
I heard a good quote recently, which is, happiness is when what you say, think, and do are the same.
Yeah, I'll have to work that one out. I'll have to percolate that one.
When you look yourself in the mirror at night going to bed.
I try not to.
We'll come back to that bit. I'm not going behind someone's back. I'm not doing something behind my own back. I'm saying the right thing. I'm being kind. I'm not being a dick. Yeah. And the ad business is not a great place for that.
I don't know.
The product is not even.
I don't know. The ad business really surprised me. Everyone told me before I came into it. I didn't go to university. I didn't know what I wanted to take, and I bounced around a bit. And everyone said, "Oh, it's dog eat dog" was an expression that was quite popular at that time. And you know, only nasty people get to the top of that sort of industry. Usually from people who aren't in the industry. And what was evident relatively early on was that actually cream floats, not shit. The good guys do well. I mean, it's quite by exception anyone that I don't think is particularly a nice person.
No,
you know,
but I see a lot of unnice people do very well.
Don't know.
Every industry.
Probably don't know them very well.
No, some people do.
Yeah, okay.
But
well, you obviously mixed with the wrong people.
It's not my fault. Tell me where you came from. Tell me what you just said you didn't go to uni. What was your childhood like? Where were you?
Okay, I was born doesn't matter, but I was brought up in Essex, in Gants Hill, which is like a Jewish place, and everything goes on in 1 square mile. You know, the school was so near the youth club, which is so near the cinema, which is so near all my friends, so it was like a little microcosm, really. And I'm culturally Jewish. I have a problem with believing in God, which is a bit of a drawback in religion.
Touch on that, yeah.
But culturally, I love bagels. And my father was a real character. He was the youngest member of the Communist Party at 11. And he went out and fought in Palestine to set up the State of Israel in 1948.
Wow.
He was at Hiroshima just after the bomb. He's smuggling bearer bonds out of Tehran for a friend in the 70s. And I grew up in a house full of books. Most of them had swastikas on because he would lecture on the Holocaust. And he would take me to libraries, and hence I've never read a book in my life. I've written, but I've never read a book.
Yeah, but when you were in the libraries, did you not read books?
No, I looked at pictures of cars. So in a way, my father was, like many, many people, a very dominant figure in my life, very loving family. Never heard my parents swear, never heard them have a row. But I've never really embraced, in my head, I can't see why anyone is worthy of God planning out fate for them, or you know, serendipity is somehow some giant plan. It doesn't feel logical. It feels ungrateful. The one thing all people and all creatures on this earth have in common is birth, but we give it no credence because we have nothing to do with it. It's very arrogant. If you think about the amount of time, planets, eggs, sperm, all that stuff. I mean, what are the odds of being born? Whether you're here for 1 minute or 100 years, what are the odds? But we're so focused on the other end, where we go next, as an intact personality, come back as a warthog or go to heaven or whatever. It just feels to me ungrateful.
Exactly.
And then, well, that's random, isn't it? Who would plan that? There's 7 or 8 billion people on this planet. And I think without any boundaries, it would be chaos. And the one curse of mankind is that we don't inherit the wisdom when we're born of our parents. So we have to learn it all. Otherwise we'd have to reinvent the wheel every time and discover fire and murder's bad and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. You know, the brain has its limitations, and that usually is the cause of what we think is something mystical. You are just not aware of everything going on. You can't take it all in. You can't process it. You can't reach it. And then coincidences happen, and when we do notice one, we think that's some sign.
Divine revelation.
It is actually a lack of bandwidth, and it's a lack of memory. It's weird. And that is also arrogant. We assume that we have access to everything.
But we could be taking our sponge-brained toddlers and not mumbo-jumboing them and filling them with philosophy and proper wisdom and understanding.
Yeah, but that's in the eye of the beholder, as people say. You can't say what is right and what is wrong.
No, but the idea that revelation leads to a kind of a problematic end where you kind of you can make excuses for not fixing things.
I suppose so. I don't know. All I know is David Cassidy. Do you remember David Cassidy?
I do. He was very attractive.
From the Partridge Family.
Yeah.
I can't remember any of his songs.
What did he say?
I just remember lots of girls around. His final words on his deathbed were, "Boy, I wasted a lot of time."
Yeah,
and I thought that's pretty
true,
accurate, actually.
Yeah, that is true.
So John Betjeman was, "I wish I had more sex." Well, I haven't got to worry about that.
Spike Milligan was, "I told you."
Yeah. They're brilliant.
See,
They're brilliant.
You'd be right.
I mean, they're only wise because they're the last thing someone said, but they are fun.
And how about, you don't have to go here if you don't want, but how about like this? I'm intrigued with your old man. So he was very fundamentalist, Jewish. How do you stand today on the state of Israel and Palestine and all that?
I don't know, really. I had never been until last year. My dad died 10 years ago. He was my hero. I ended up doing what I'm doing because of him. He was very caring in the sense that he sat me down and said, "What are you going to do? You're going to go to university, what are you going to take?" He wanted to be a psychiatrist. He had a really high IQ. I take after my mother. And he wasn't able to go to school after the age of 12 because they got bombed, and then he was in the Navy, and so he missed out on all that. And I just assumed that a man as scholarly as him and well-read as him would insist I went to university, because vicariously living through your children is quite a common thing. And I was kind of resigned to it. And he said, "No, why don't you try going out into the world, try a few things. See what sets you on fire."
Right.
And it's that. I mean, I knew he loved me. We kissed every time we met, and it was a very warm family. But he was thinking about me. He wasn't bothered about impressing the neighbours and saying, "Look, I did my bit. I got to university and he screwed it up."
Upbringing, it was all about
you've got to do this. You've got to do this.
Yeah.
But no, he was thinking about me and what was right for me.
Right.
And I didn't go very far. A merchant bank came to the school, so I didn't have to go
school
out.
Or
Average. I did enough to be okay, but I wasn't really turned on by anything except art. And then I went to a school which didn't have an art department, so that was the end of that.
I was a straight C student.
Well, kind of. I got four A levels, I think.
That's good, yeah.
B's, kind of thing. Could have gone to uni.
Yeah, same.
But Dad thought, no, and I did everything my dad said. I really didn't.
I was kind of ordered to go to uni by my dad, and I said no.
Yeah.
I ended up doing a sort of an advertising course that my mum kind of helped get me into, because there was a summer course.
So was your dad looking for you to trip up in some way in the rest of your life? So you could say, "I told you so."
Well, he's been okay about it, but we stood nose to nose about it, because he put a deposit down, and I said, "Well, he said when I was 18 I could make my own decisions," and so I managed to. And I started working when I was 18 in advertising. Ended up not going to college probably.
Oh.
But after a couple of years, when I'm doing well. Oh, we always knew our son was going to be the
Right.
Which is fair enough. I suppose most parents would do that.
The only thing my father couldn't do, he spoke 7 languages. He wrote books. He was a real scholar. He was a freedom fighter. He was a volunteer. He was decorated by the president of Israel for bravery and things like that.
Did he hunt Nazis?
Yeah.
So he was mates with Wiesenthal.
I don't know.
He was the main guy.
I know. I think yes. I think so, but I couldn't honestly swear to it.
Yeah.
But the one thing he left open was he was never really able to make money. Right. And so I was driven to try and make money. I wasn't born to make money. I'm not built as a person who understands a P&L or, I see things. I can see the future. I can see opportunities.
Yeah.
But I can't make them add up. I need partners. I'm not the complete item. He told me when I was, I don't know, how old was I? 29 or something. I was working at WCRS. I was on the board, driving whatever BMW I wanted, every 6 months a new one. I was earning, I think in the 80s, 140 grand. That's a lot of money.
Even today,
it's a lot of money. When we came to set up our company, PhD, my father rang me and said, I don't think it's a good idea, son, because you're doing so well. You've got your own column in the Telegraph. That's his newspaper. That was no coincidence. Mm-hmm. You know, everyone's listening to you. You're really well paid. You're in a really great job and a really great agency. I'm really worried that, you know, this won't work. And I said, well, for the first time in my life, Dad, thanks for saying that, but I'm doing it. And that was a moment of satisfaction. But I was 31. You know, it was a long time ago.
Do you think that a lot of your, you know, it seems like a lot of it was you're trying to find your own niche that was different to his, that he would...
Yeah, but it was a blessing.
Approve of, yeah.
It was a blessing. He had mentioned advertising, and in fact, my first job in the business was also as a result of his newspaper, The Telegraph. In the back, they used to list all of the television programmes. Border Television.
I remember Grampian,
you know, ATV, whatever. All those were listed individually. So I wrote to all of those companies from the back of the Telegraph, getting the names from there. And then I had an interview at Anglia Television. And I've been working in a merchant bank, and it really wasn't working for me at all. I was scared of the phone. The phone would ring. I'd pretend it wasn't ringing. It's not great in a shared department.
Why were you afraid of the phone?
I don't know. I was shy then. But I went to the Anglia Television, and I loved it. All these young people whizzing about. It was in Park Lane. It was really glamorous. I was paid nothing. £1,433 a month. A year.
Is that the exact amount?
Yeah. I can't remember if it was a month or a year. How bizarre. It's the 70s.
You got the exact amount?
1977. But they didn't give me the job. And so for the first time in my life, I wrote back and said, you've made a terrible mistake. You should have hired me because I'm really keen. And they rang me out and said, okay then. And that's how I got in. For the first time, you know, I actually sort of thought, I'm not taking this, I bloody want it.
Yeah.
And I was proud of myself for doing it because I was quite nervous about it.
How old were you then?
I was about 19.
Okay, so 17.
Yeah.
I was cocky then.
Were you?
I believed in myself much more than I would have if I got, like, I got made, it was only Ireland, but, you know, I was made the head of Ford account when I was 20.
Wow.
And I thought, sure, I can do this. And I had a silver suit and a sort of Chris Waddle hair and white shoes. But what had actually happened was the guy who was actually the head of the Ford account was a 40-something-year-old account director who had an alcoholic breakdown.
Okay.
And was in getting treatment.
That's part of the job, though.
I know, and they were covering for him with the 4 clients saying, you know, we've put Sean on, just put your arm around him. He's all right, like he's not going to fucking drop balls left, right, and centre. But I was so stupid then that I didn't realise what was really going on. I thought I'd been promoted to this massive job.
Well, you were, really.
And I wouldn't have been able to do it 3 years later because I would have known that this was all bollocks. And I put that down as actually, because I got confidence then, and the lads really did look after me. They were older to be my dad.
Yeah.
But yeah, what about you? You haven't mentioned your mother.
Yeah, my mum was fantastic. A mum, completely and utterly. So if I was a serial killer, she'd ask me if I've got a scarf because it's cold out. You know, she was utterly supportive.
Take some lunch with you.
She didn't worry about her. Thelma was not the most important person. It's everybody else. A natural carer, lovely person, and never heard her. The nearest she ever got to swearing was saying conkers.
Oh, lovely.
The problem is, if there is a problem, and I wouldn't change her in any way, I wouldn't have done, was that I didn't know who Thelma was. I knew Mum, but never questioned it, because you don't. But Thelma didn't know who Thelma was either.
Yeah.
And I think that was because of the generational thing of, you know, immigrant family come over from Poland, tailors, seamstresses, all that kind of that background. And they put all their effort into the son. So my lovely uncle, Norman, brother to my mum, became the Queen's doctor. And they put all that effort into that and then not into the older daughter because they didn't have the funds for it. And the same happened to my grandmother. And that was just the way of things then.
Did that happen to you? No.
What?
The other girl, your sister was the terror.
My sister was the rebel.
Yeah.
And she travelled a lot. And my dad was really worried about me. I used to lie on the floor underneath the dining room table staring up for hours on end. What are you doing? What are you doing? That's what I'm thinking. But he just didn't know where I was going.
So you kind of were, you were kind of an only child. Like,
I love my sister, but there's a 4-year gap.
Okay.
Which means I was professionally incredibly annoying. Yeah, as a younger brother, I took that role to extremes. I would tap her on the arm all the time, relentlessly, never stopping. Absolutely puerile shit.
And what about friends and all that kind of stuff? Were you popular?
I was popular. Never had a fight in my life. I put a rumour around at school that I was a trained boxer. No one came near me. But then there was a rumour that went around about a year later that they were introducing boxing, and I shat myself because I've never hit anybody. It's on my bucket list, so watch out, Sean. Watch it, Sean. Yeah. It's on my bucket list. I've got to have a fight. Yeah. And I'm a very good friend of Chris Eubank and his son.
I'm a friend of Conor McGregor's. Come on,
I don't give a fuck.
In the ivory room.
Okay. And David Hay. I raise you David Hay. Actually, I can't beat your one. Damn it.
Yeah.
But, I just never had a fight. My mum came to see me at the school, my first day at school, and she was hanging around to see how I was going to get on at break time. I didn't know she was there, but apparently all these older kids came over and surrounded me, and she got a bit nervous about that. And then she saw my mouth going, and they all laughed and dispersed, and she thought he'll be fine. Yeah, and that's kind of the story of my fighting career.
I was the joker in school.
It's that.
If you can make someone laugh.
It's that.
By
It's
the way,
a weapon.
Same applies to advertising.
I know.
No, does it?
I was most worried when my children were born, all three of them. My biggest worry was that they wouldn't have a sense of humour. Yeah. But happily, they all do.
If you can be kind and have a sense of humour, I don't think there's a problem.
No.
So, did you get married early?
First time I got married, I met Laura. Well, I met Laura when I was 12. Then we went out on a double blind date with my cousin and her cousin when we were 22. We both got married to the other blind date, if you like, my cousin and I. At 25, we bought houses next door to each other, had children at the same time. And I was with Laura for 23 years.
Still a friend still?
No, she died, unfortunately, age 45. But she had she was alcoholic and liked drugs, and I liked drugs and alcohol and that older. But she also had a congenital condition, which is, what's it called? EDS.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a very over-flexible joints, but it also affects the heart and the brain and mobility. We didn't know about that. We didn't know about that.
Skin gets all plastic.
Yeah, all that.
Yeah.
And the life expectancy for that is on average 48.
Yes.
She made 45, but we had no idea about that condition. And I assumed she killed herself, but she hadn't.
Were you still together when she died?
We had split for a month, and then we just got back together. And it was, my daughter had all sorts of issues and problems, my oldest daughter, and suddenly find yourself A, single, more importantly, B, a single parent. And I married a nurse for a reason. She could hold the hands of people who were dying, do the cat litter, and hug a baby, none of which I'm much good at. But you have to learn, you have to learn.
People's babies.
Yeah,
I am as well a bit.
I made that list. I made the list of everything.
And I read about it in one of my research.
That was very
therapeutic for you.
Yeah, cathartic. I was trying to think of the word.
Good
word.
I'll come back to that list.
All right.
So by the time you're married early, everything's going well. Your mate's next door, his wife. You've landed in advertising, right? Big cars.
Well, not for a while. I was thinking I wasn't staying in advertising. I didn't think it was for me, particularly media, because it was full of table-thumping thugs, quite masculine. And it was, as you said, a buying exercise mostly. And I had a style of buying airtime, which I would describe as pleading all over the carpet, or bleeding all over the carpet, or begging all over the carpet.
A preamp rate card, all that.
All that stuff. F1, F2, F3, F4, gold spot, all that. But it wasn't really for me. So I met a guy who's a friend of mine, and we plotted to start. This is before Tyrac, or a shirt shop that was purely specialising, called Montpellier.
Oh, that's it.
And we were quite a long way down the line. But actually, around that time, the industry started to change. And because it had recruited people who were suitable to the old industry of negotiation, and I was more of a graphic artist, more creative, I wouldn't put myself alongside creative departments. I mean, I would now, but at the time. I was kind of very different. And suddenly the industry turned my way. So I was a rare blend, cocktail that was more appropriate, and I fell in love with it. And I remember, I don't know why I brought this up, but anyway, you can cut it, whatever. I was sitting in this pitch, and my PA came in, rather sheepishly, passed me a piece of paper. I have wiped all of your slides. There is nothing. I cannot get them back. It was about an hour and a half into the pitch already. So I sent a note up to Roger Matthews, the manager director at the time. She's wiped all my slides, I've got nothing. And he sent me a note back. I felt somewhat reassured that I was just getting a note back. And he said, I hope you can sing.
That's a great line.
And actually, you know what? It was the best pitch I'd done for a while, that one. Because in fact, you have to, you can't lean on. I learned that actually chemistry is all in this business. And whether you're in the media department, the creative department, or an account handler, actually squaring up, looking a client in the eye and having trust. You might not like each other, respect each other, or just feel that there's some energy there is very, very important. It's much more than half the reason why people choose an agency. It's not always the work. Cause
I remember the first time I went without notes, the liberation of that, like in a pitch, scared shit. It was like I just decided I was going to talk the strategy.
I always did that.
By the way, when I did it once, I never went back to notes again. In fact, I hate rehearsals because I'm good on the day.
Me too.
And I kind of.
But I would often be hungover. What I'd do is I'd sabotage myself, so I had an excuse if we didn't win it. And if we did win it, I would have another hurdle I got over. It was self-harming in a way. It's like looking for a landmine to jump on, going for it. I mean, in the most extreme version of this was a speech. I forget what it was called, Battle of the Planners, Natural History Museum, 200 or 300 people, and I hadn't been to bed, and I had no notes, and I didn't prepare anything at all. So you get the big intro, and then I'm on. I'm unshaven. I found it very strangely exciting.
Yeah.
Started doing stand-up.
Yeah, very.
I didn't know what I was going to say. And I went, well, as you can see, I haven't been to bed last night. I was drinking all night.
Laughs.
I haven't had a shave.
Laughs.
But I'll tell you why, because who cares? It's not worth it. Yeah. Look where you are. You're in the Natural History Museum for a reason. Yeah. Over there, we spotted a skeleton of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I said, look at that magnificent beast. The size of its legs. Look at the size of its jaw. The teeth. Amazing. And little tiny arms. Little tiny arms. I bet it spent 1 million years doing press-ups to try and get its arms to look vaguely similar. Right?
Yeah.
But if it had learned how to knit with those dexterous arms, it could have knitted a jumper and survived the Ice Age. And that's you lot. And then it went downhill from there. But at least I got that.
I probably was hungover many a time going into music, but I just loved that. That was just a real break for me. That was probably the time when I felt I know how to do this. I know what I'm doing, and I know what I need to say to that person. And then I had people who go, "You went a bit off script there." I said, "Yeah, I go off script every time because sometimes the room goes off script. Sometimes the client says something, and you need to go."
I had a couple of pictures, one for Warner Brothers, where it wasn't going very well, and I stood up in the middle of it and stopped it, and burst into tears, and just gave an emotional outpouring. Genuine.
Yeah.
I mean, I cry at Little Mermaid, so
cry as well.
I'm screwed.
More than ever.
No thermostat. No.
I just turned 50.
No, well, I'll tell you about that in a minute.
Okay.
And I cried, and we won the business because of that connection. You know, and an experience I had recently, the opposite. It was somebody else I met who was really brilliant and wonderful at their job. But she was more interested in telling the room, this is a £100 million pitch, about the fact that she doesn't work on a Friday and that if they have the decision, they should bring someone else on a Friday. They didn't get it. And I think part of the reason might be that the client wants to see people arguing passionately about their business and the feeling that they go the extra mile for them. And that's what they're looking for, not someone showing off the fact they can do that job in a 4-day week.
On a Friday,
I didn't get that at all.
When did you become vulnerable? Because you are.
I've always been vulnerable.
Yeah, but you.
Part of my fuel.
Did you hide it for a while?
I don't know. You'd have to ask someone else because I live in my head.
You would say no. You didn't hide it.
Well, my vulnerability would come out in I would be I'd bottle out. So if I had an opportunity to bottle out at the last minute, I would.
You could have bottled out of the planner thing.
I could have bottled out of anything, but
Yeah.
I learned, having made so many mistakes. I mean, in one thing, I went to Reader's Digest. I went in to do a speech. I was in my 20s. And I got completely tongue-tied. I didn't know what to say. And I pretended to faint. And they called a doctor. And that was really excruciating.
Yeah.
And you learn. That's how you learn. But we made so many mistakes that just got through it and actually learned how to deal with it. Learned you had more time than you thought. Learned how to get people on your side, to be self-deprecating and show who you really are. Not to make it a one-man show stand-up routine, but at least to get people with you so that they listen.
Yeah.
And then to do them the honour of distilling down into plain English what you're trying to say and make it clear so it passes the Uber test. Because when people leave the room, they can remember at most 2 things. So when you're sitting in the cab on the way back from a presentation,
That was good.
you only have to remember 2 things. You have to be bloody sure that they've got that.
Yeah.
And that's all. Let them fall in love with you or hate you, and let them understand what you're saying clearly and take it away with them.
Yeah.
And that's all about human memory as well. Yeah. We only have a capacity for so much. And I'd say that is a very, very big secret of winning.
I agree. So for those who don't know a lot about the advertising business, in the sort of late 80s, it morphed into 2 separate businesses, one being the buying of space and time and posters and print ads, paying ITV and commercial stations to run your piece, and that was based on volume, and the other was the creative side, which actually made the ads, and they split off, and then you split off your idea PhD, which was based on the fact that there was a lack of thinking on the former end.
Just at a time when it was getting interesting. I mean, this is what we wanted to do, and this was our timing. It happened to be the first day of a recession, the day we launched, which looked terrible.
Oh,
turned out to be
1990.
1990,
yeah.
February the 1st. But it turned out to be the blessing. The thing is, you can't control everything. You're not in control of things. So there's no point worrying about them. It was our time, and the things that we were good at happened to be in defiance of the movement of the sector. We did an unusual thing when we launched. We actually ran an ad campaign for ourselves. I mean, in this industry, it's peculiar, but nobody advertises it.
And they do them badly.
They don't do it. I mean, it's pathetic. We had out-of-home 96 sheet all over the country. Well, we got Duckworth Finn to do some ads for us, and they still have this, one of the ads at PhD, they still have it in all the meeting rooms there. And it's a media company that always puts their ad in the same place, and it's a picture of a head and a brain. And it's in black and white. And there was another one, media company, that sticks out, and it's a big fist with a thumb and a plaster on it. Sticks out like a sore thumb, in other words. Yeah. When anyone, even the Sunday Times, for instance, used to run a piece in there about the Zenith and what's going on, they'd always talk about PhD.
They call you for comment.
Yeah, because we were the opposite to the movement. You know that Levi's ad, which we did when I was zigzag, and it's the picture of the black sheep facing in the opposite direction.
DVHs.
That's exactly what we did. Also because that's the bit that interested us. When there's a movement in an industry, you know, the vacuum or the void that's left behind by that movement, there's always a really great proposition, because inevitably it's not that black and white. It allowed us to actually attract the best talent, better than us, and give them room to make mistakes. That was important. Make people loyal by demonstrating how important they were. The receptionists at PhD are the same receptionists 25 years on.
It was a time when actually staff were looked after better. I mean, I remember I was in
They still do.
But your company was built on that foundation. Whereas I think all of the other, as they all got bought, turned into just this blancmange kind of every agency the same. But I remember a friend of mine was out in Hong Kong, and she was talking to the head of Publicis, who said, we just made the most profit of any group in Asia last year. And they was at some big fucking dinner, and he goes, do you know where he got it from? He went, the staff.
Yeah, that's not good.
In a nudge, like, I'm so fucking clever.
Yeah, I know, I hate that.
Yeah, well, they're leaving you, by the way, mate, in droves.
No, we had a rule, even in the early days, that if we didn't have such a good year, we'd make a loss at any point in that company, which is a huge shock.
That's amazing.
But if we had a less good year, we had 1 year, I think, where it wasn't quite so good, the rule was the board didn't get a bonus, but everyone else did.
Fair enough.
And we took everybody away, 5 staff, for 3 days.
Always have the Christmas party. Make it good. Yeah.
We took 250 people away, including the janitor, headhunters, everybody associated.
Yeah.
Everybody comes along. And we supplied condoms and club guides and a month's salary. Because those memories are glue. You have a golden period in your career. This is a golden period for this company. And we hope it is for you. But you only ever know that after the event and you look back.
Correct.
Just be in the present and let's really celebrate, because we've got something to celebrate together. And we created a culture where we had an in-house psychiatrist, this is 25 years ago,
Amazing.
who was there for every member of staff. And the brief was, find out what will make them happy.
Brilliant.
And get people to actually think about that rather than just want to be a managing
Did that
director.
psychiatrist also do a bit of planning on this?
No. No, Ruth didn't, but she was great. And
So you had that reputation, and so just go back to your thing now, when did sort of you start feeling you were maybe drinking too much or doing too much drugs or anything like that? How did
I
that
didn't.
start? You didn't do it at all?
No, I didn't think
You
it was a
didn't think-
problem.
When did it start and how did it start?
I started at 20
Okay.
and it grew.
What? Pot, Coke, everything?
Oh, just Coke.
Right.
So,
And booze?
yeah, inevitably they go hand in hand, but
Yeah.
I was more of a drug person than a drink person.
So I made a decision when I was 17. No kids, no marriage, no drugs.
How's that going?
I did it all the way till I retired.
Wow.
Because I knew I would. The kids and marriage thing is easy because I just looked around me and everywhere I looked was just divorces, and I don't know any person who I know well who's happier after they've had a baby. None. So I didn't want that. The drugs thing, I knew I would adore them. I would be in the gutter. I'm a big drinker. Drank for Ireland back in the day. I decided not to. So when I gave up the business sort of back in the business, I was 47, 48, and I said, I was actually living in Denver where pot was, I hadn't even done pot. And that was legal there, so I started, of course, I'd have 9 edibles and just be completely, I never liked it. I'd just be completely a mess because I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Tried MDMA 2 years ago, which I thought, oh my God, thank God I did not do this when I was 18 because it was just amazing, but I couldn't get it back. Got it 1 or 2, first couple of times, sensational. So I've kind of abandoned that. And Coke, and this is where I want to go with you. Coke, like you are a raconteur. Your brain, I can see, is just moving at 100 miles an hour. You're smart, you're on it. Coke keeps me up all night, but it doesn't. A lot of people, friends of mine who use it to get the old bravado to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's a defence thing.
Yeah, but was it with you?
It became anything any excuse, any reason. I'm upset, I'm happy, I'm elated, I'm celebrating, I've got things to do, I need to speed up.
Yeah.
I need to have the energy to be able to work all night, 7 days a week, for 20 years. It wasn't a big problem at all for a long time. It was really recreational, but it grew and grew. And by the time I was in my 40s, it got really, really, really serious. But I've never been ill. I've never been, touch wood, I've never been to hospital, never had an anaesthetic. I was quite disappointed actually because I was in the Priory, 49. And I thought, well, before I do all this, I'd better get myself checked up. Because it's not worth, if I'm going to die in 3 weeks, I really don't want to do this. I don't want to go through all this. Tell me about it. I spent £3.5 million there. Not on me, but on my wife, my daughter. That includes also all the dementia stuff on both my parents. So it was a lot of money. It was a lot of money to me, but I spent an equivalent amount on myself. And I had this checkup from this rather lovely French doctor lady who was brilliant. She said, listen, Mr. Durden, you're not supposed to give your body back in perfect condition at the end, which made me feel relaxed. I wasn't going to be told off. It's not like being at school and, you didn't do very well at your exams or something.
Yeah.
So I had this test, and then they called me a day later. Rather nervously went into the room, and she said, you're in perfect health. I was really disappointed. I tried really hard. But, I don't. I try to be more contained in that area now. Not because I'm ill or anything, but because it's time.
And you were a nice guy to work with, as a boss, right? Because you wanted the place to be fun. I wanted
everybody to enjoy, and I wanted everyone to find out what made them happy. And we structured the company around them. If you wanted to enjoy your craft as a media planner, no one could tell you that because it sounds unambitious. You've got a crowd that genuinely want to be managing director or chief executive. And then you got people who want to be entrepreneurs but haven't done it yet or never will. So we just opened it up and we made 2 craft people for 1 managing director. So you had twice the chance to get to the top of the company.
That's great.
Doing what you do best.
That's clever.
And anyone who had ideas about new companies and came to us, we didn't have to say, it has to be in data. If it was a good idea and it fitted what we wanted to do, we would back them. We would split the profits.
Did you make a lot of money that way?
Within 2 years, the first 4 made more money than PhD.
That's what I was going to say. A lot of...
And those boys have gone on and made more money than us. We were the first into digital. We were the first into advertiser-funded programming. We had all these amazing companies, and they were out of the energy and the focus and the ideas of people that work with us. And then that's been extended since we left into something called The Source, where there's something like 8,000 staff there now. It's a 12 billion turnover company. But everybody in every office of the world has an input onto every brief anywhere in the world. So the team,
if they want
gets support from everybody. It's monitored and gamified, so you can see how well you're doing versus people in your office versus people in your country.
So I should contribute to 3 or 4 briefs a month?
Yeah. It's not compulsory.
I don't do it at all.
But it's part of your assessment.
I'm not a team player, right? Yeah.
And you're assessed. So you have people who are in the finance department in Delhi showing an aptitude for planning and creativity or something, and they're offered jobs in that new area. So you never need...
Why is the whole business not doing that?
Well, I've been trying to persuade Mark Holden to come with me and launch that product. Because for me, that's the corporate future. That's if I'm Unilever, IBM, you've got tens of thousands of people working for you. Why are you in silos? Why are you not recognising anyone can have an idea, anyone can have a view, incentivise people, it's fun, and have a chance to get a new job.
Something bigger, yeah. No.
It's mad.
There was a cancer that came in, I don't know, started by maybe WPP, that just those people left and went into the other ones, and it was just cancer. It was just about resentful back of office people forming walls with front of office people, not realising the front
One
of
of the advantages of WPP, which I will say in their defence, is that with Martin Sorrell, they had a leader who actually took part. Which is a control freaky thing, but there is something rather good about having someone interested in the business. There's a downside to that, and Omnicom is the opposite. So Omnicom have John Wren, no one ever sees, plays golf all afternoon. I'm sure he's brilliant. I've never met him.
Probably a good golfer, yeah.
But they don't give a monkeys about your company unless it doesn't hit its target.
Yeah.
Then they're all over it. But we always hit our target. So we could pretend we still owned it. And that allowed us to enjoy our culture and not have one thrust upon us.
Oh. What was your... So then... Can you go back? Was your wife's death a triggering thing for you then in terms of a crisis? Was that what?
Well, yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, my daughter.
Was that when the wheels kind of started falling?
No, the wheels would have come off before that, but certainly, it really, really was a wake-up call, or the opposite, explosion. It wasn't expected. And
your daughter?
My daughter was very ill, and she's amazing, actually. She's now a psychotherapist.
Okay.
And both my son's an estate agent. And it's amazing. He's only been going 6 months. He's got like 400 apartments in Dubai to sell for the royal family.
Wow.
He's got an amazing itinerary and a wonderful work ethic. I'm really proud of him. But the whole of Essex now covered in boards saying Durden Hunt, which is, kind of rhymes.
Club. Sounds like Fight Club.
Well, Tyler Durden, yeah.
That sounds like Fight Club.
Yeah, that's right. It's the only character that's got my name. I know. But I said it mustn't be Hunt.
That.
I said it mustn't be Hunt Durden because that's an instruction, and I don't want that. Anyway, that was a very dark time. I left 4 years after that because I was just bored.
But your coke was getting out of control and stuff like that now, was it?
Yeah, and then I went to Big Brother.
Let's start trying to take a bit of this in chunks. You how did you go on Big Brother or why? So you were a media personality as well. So you wrote for The Guardian
and Media Week
and your wit kind of
Media
article.
Week and Marketing Week and all that stuff. And then The Guardian.
And you were very wit rich at this stage.
Well,
But I mean, you made your money.
I made money. I spent a lot of
There's nothing wrong with that. But like when you said you were bored, like, was that what caused it? You said you were bored. You left the business.
I left the business. Yeah, I mean, I was bored with earning 600,000, not turning up. Yeah. I don't know what I was thinking. I should have stayed really, but I wanted to do something else. So I joined an ad agency called Miles Cowcraft, which is now Lucky Generals, as a partner. I wrote a book. I met someone 3 years after my first wife had passed away, and we had a whirlwind romance, and we were getting married. And I put the wedding off to go into Big Brother. That's the state of my head. Because it came my way. I didn't look for it, because I didn't like the show, apart from anything else. But I like the audience. I like the idea of the audience. I thought this is my only opportunity. I've done 1,000 people on speeches, in the same venue. I've been on the Money Programme. I've been on Newsnight. Yeah. I've been on the Gadget Show, but I've never had a 5 million audience watching me sleep.
It's very narcissistic.
I'm a dog. I'm a narcissist, definitely. Certainly at that point. And I'm a dog, so cheap love is all you really strive for. My wife is a journalist. Was a journalist for News of the World and Cosmopolitan, right? My current wife. A friend of mine, David Emin, who's my best friend, who was at Mirror Group, News International at the time, he introduced me to my wife, and his next door neighbour was Philip Edgar Jones, who runs Sky Arts now, but at the time he ran Endemol. Right. And he wanted David Emin to go on Big Brother. And David Emin didn't, but he knew a wanker who would, and that was me. And I basically made that happen and went on. And, all sorts of stuff was going on at the time in my private life, but I didn't care. I just didn't care. And in a way, it did me a favour, because after that, went into some joint therapy with she was my ex-fiancée, because obviously she didn't want to hang around with me anymore. But we worked it out. She came back.
You seemed like you wanted to hit a wall. I mean, you came out.
I do. I look for landmines. I said before, I look for landmines to step on.
Yeah.
You don't turn up at a pitch when you've had a big night. Yeah. You look for that kind of. I've never really worked that out.
And you came out with all this. You were very overt then. Your grandmother died, I think. Is that why you...
Yes, that's why I was allowed out. Yeah. And they wanted me back in. But then I got doorstepped by News of the World.
Yeah. You got doorstepped and told the truth, and then you were all in the newspapers.
Yes.
How did that feel?
It was
you
pretty
lost your
grim.
fiancé over it, right?
Yeah. But I'd already experienced much worse. If you've ever held someone dying, who's your wife, or had things happen to your children. My son was nearly killed, beaten up by a gang. My daughter, problems. All this stuff bends you way out of shape. This was bad, but it was nowhere near that. So I could cope. Yeah. This was nowhere near the top 5 worst things. And I've had a really charmed life. I'm the luckiest man in the world. I'm not poor me, nothing like that. No. But once you are bent out of shape through trauma and the world happening, things happen. Things happen to everybody. It allows you to actually deal with it and step away from it and not be catastrophizing.
Is there a part of you that courts it, though?
Probably, yes. I think there is as I say, I look for a suicide mission somewhere in there.
Yeah.
It's part of bottling out at the last minute or sabotaging something.
And there's something going
all the way through. And I really am more aware of myself now, and I try and protect myself from that. Try and have some boundaries.
But still living large. I mean, so you went into the Priory then?
Yeah, not for long.
Clean.
A week.
Yeah, okay. But then
there was more to get out of the way of cameras, actually.
It's an expensive way to do that.
Yes.
Could come to Ireland.
Nothing compared to my wife. My wife was in for 3 years. She was all right, but she couldn't cope. Anyway, that was her story. My ex-mum, late wife.
Yeah, and then when a newspaper comes out giving you the treatment, the Sun, all that kind of stuff, and you're on the receiving end of it as a media person, who's been putting ads.
I'll tell you what was weird about that. Is that I wrote their book called Essex, Drugs and Rock and Roll, which I published in 2008 after I came out of Big Brother in 2007. But I wrote it in 2004. And in that book, the hero, the lead character, is bent out of shape and he loses all sense of fear. And he does anything he wants. He does the best pitch ever done in an agency. But also he's a bit mad and he sleeps with his mother-in-law and his children take photographs of him, and that gets published in News of the World in the book, which I wrote 3 years before this happened.
There's something going on
right?
there, right? Yeah.
And I even went back to the book, which hadn't been published at that point, but did exist, and thought as a strategy what I might do was what the character in the book did, which is he goes into politics, right? Which I haven't done, Conservative Party thing.
Of course.
And there's this picture of him with his mother-in-law in bed, and on the front page of the Sun. And what he does is he takes a double-page spread out in the Sun the day before the expose, lists all the things he's ever done wrong, everything, and it says, who would you rather have represent you? We're up against the French and the Germans. Who would you rather have, an angel or the devil? Who would you rather be defending you? It's like Brexit. And the public go, that's refreshing. Yeah, I don't want some bloke or woman who's got no experience of life. I'd rather have someone like this. And they gets voted in. So I seriously considered that. Yeah. And then I thought, just get over it and take it. You know, my favourite piece of music is Nat King Cole, Face the Music and Dance. And I thought, just sing that bloody song, face it, and do it. Yeah. So I did. And I thanked them for saving my life and just got on with it. Yeah. And whatever the mess was, and it was horrible, you know, just face it and do your best, tell the truth.
Do leopards change their spots?
No, not fundamentally. I'm still 5 apparently in my head. Which is why the other day was so painful. I was on the tube, a lady in her 30s was looking at me, I was thinking, oh, I've still got it. And then she stood up and offered me her seat. And I thought, I'm going to kill myself. But in my head, I'm still 5. So a leopard does change its spots because you do learn coping mechanisms, you do learn how to view things with an aerial view about yourself and who you are, and you can spot patterns and aim off if you have the tools, and the first tool is awareness. Then I try and do that. But I am still fundamentally the same thing.
Did you do AA and all that?
Yeah, I did everything. I was sober for...
AA, going back to our first chat about God being kind of the core thing there.
Well, then you're allowed to define the higher power as you wish. And for me, it's a way of saying the world doesn't revolve around me. You know.
So has that been what you've been doing, tamping ego? Would that be fair over the last while, trying to get your ego into shape? Where you
partly, but also be stronger in myself about. Like I would use people, take the mickey out of them in order to get a cheap laugh in a room. That kind of stuff, right down to that. Because the cheap laugh is more important than actually hurting someone.
Yeah.
And just being aware of my behaviour, how I think, knowing my own weaknesses, and it's a daily battle. But it's quite a constructive one. Yeah. Because I have more time in the present. Yeah. You know all this. You know, I have much more time to appreciate my kids, and we spend a lot of time. My grandsons, 2 today.
Well, happy birthday. Donnie Durden. He's going to be famous.
Donnie Melvin Durden. He's a gangster. Don't fuck with me. I'm Donnie Durden.
Yes, or he'll be a speedway racer.
Something. It's a good name. Not Donald. Donnie.
Yeah. Right. He'll change his name to Donald if he's on speedway.
And happy birthday, Donnie.
Happy birthday, Donnie. No, well, my one, and I've said it on the pod before, is I just start every day and close it with, I want to be as kind as I can today. Because I do take the mic. And I do like the laugh, but I never like the laugh if I really upset someone, if I really hurt someone by getting that laugh. Because it's unkind. Will I talk about someone behind their back who I don't know, with someone who I'm very friendly with? Yes. I would hate them to hear me. I'd hate them to be upset. And I'd be more than happy for someone to take the piss out of my ponytail behind my back than to my face or whatever. But you know, I just like that kindness thing where you can it's one word, and if everyone just lived by that, I mean, screw religion. That's the point.
I know Buddhism's got it right. Actually, it's a code to live, not a religion.
Removing desire as well.
It recognises that you're not going to be perfect, and it just constrains the boundaries and makes you more conscious. And I think that's a great code to live by.
Yeah. There's a redemption.
Rather than my God's bigger than your God.
And I'll kill you if you don't believe in mine.
Yeah, I mean, it's mad.
There's a redemption downside to this, which I also picked up last year, right? You started getting involved with...
This was 2015.
The charities.
Yeah. It was all about me as usual. So I made a list of... I came back into the workplace and I was finding it difficult to not be sending out signals of doubt. Because I'm in my 50s.
At your age.
Who am I? What do I do now? So I decided to self-diagnose and not go into therapy or anything like that. And I made a list of everything I'm scared of. So it was a random list. Being a passenger in a car, crying in public, holding a baby, Africa for some reason. Bit scary, insects as well. It's like when you're looking for a new car and you make a list. And now on that list, top of that list might be a Volvo XC60. Suddenly every Volvo XC60 on the road is shouting at you as they go past. Because your awareness radar is up. Same thing with this. And within 3 weeks I'd met a lady called Lucy Buck, who ironically had been working at Endemol when I was in the house, but we'd never met. But she'd gone on to establish and found, she'd kill me for saying this, an orphanage, because it isn't actually an orphanage. It looks after abandoned babies in Uganda, many of which have AIDS. And I talked to her, and 3 weeks later, I'm landing in Kampala. There's nothing about this I wanted to do, and I wasn't there to save the world. One of the things I said to myself was I was going to shut the hell up, not start throwing money around, giving people anything, not get in the way, my first priority. I was sleeping on the floor with the other social workers, under a net, because of the mosquitoes, and going out into the wilds outside of Kampala to see 15-year-old mothers with babies in a shed with no light and all this sort of stuff, or people with 6 kids and the mother died. It was absolutely amazing. Holding babies, they were amazing. There were 2 little boys as I walked up to the home who stood at the gates and shouted at me, "Daddy!" I thought, these kids are brilliant. This is the best marketing campaign I've ever seen. They were 4.
Yeah, they would say, "Daddy, Daddy."
Yeah, Daddy. But the whole premise of Child's Eye, which is the charity, is not to effectively be paid to export children to America for adoption, but to put the babies back into the communities from where they came, either back with their parents, it can be the grandmother, the auntie, or just within the community. And they got phenomenal success at doing that. It was very humbling. And obviously I raised money for them afterwards to say thank you and to do my best. But for me, it rebooted my head. And from that moment on, I have been inundated with work. It was like doing chanting, meditation. Yeah. It shuts up the noisy bit that keeps you awake at night and lets the other bit of your head go, thank fuck he's gone, and sort it out for you. And this did that for me.
What's next for you?
Well, I did launch a men's grooming product company called Below the Belt.
Is it for downstairs grooming mainly? Right.
And we deserve products that are designed for our anatomy, because our anatomy is a crap design.
So it's mainly a depilatory cream for men, is it?
It's called Fresh and Dry. It's right. Below the Belt is the brand.
Yeah.
Fresh and Dry balls, instant clean balls, which is a pump spray. Yeah. If you can't get to a shower, say
no
festival.
Swallocks.
That's what we had as one of our ads online. Thanks.
Very good.
Your balls are safe in our hands.
Perfect.
As an inline.
Have you gone down the nuts route? Because you can go.
I've done nuts. Yeah. We did Jokic as well during Wimbledon, which was great. Right. The problem is that we are carrying the entire weight of explaining a new sector, and I underestimated that. I underestimated that memories do not stretch back to talcum powder. People don't know that that's what men did. So you have to do the whole job, and we are a privately funded
first one to market. They're clever, usually owns it.
No, it's not the case when it's a whole sector.
Will just come wading in.
That's what I need.
Yeah.
I would love that.
To buy you, which Dollar Shave Club got bought by.
Yeah, I know, $1 billion.
Yeah.
But we had a bigger purpose, which was to celebrate modern men.
Yeah.
To represent things that men should have but we are completely ignored.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to invent the hubby hub. And that is 42% of all marriages break, usually around the age of 40 or 42. Men usually leave the household and the children are left with the mum. Fair enough, but men leave paranoid that their children are going to be poisoned against them.
Some other
Often moving with the first person they meet, or a studio flat, or back with mum and dad. So I thought, well, I know Regis, I know WeWork. Where are the places where men could go for 6 months as a pit stop, be with other men they don't know, like on a long distance flight. You're on your own if you're on a long distance flight. You ignore the person next to you for 2 hours, and then you look at your watch and think, 8 more hours. Hello, I'm Jonathan. How are you? And you talk.
Yeah.
By the time you get off the plane, you know more about each other than anyone on earth. By the time you get to baggage, you can't remember what they look like. These are places where people who, doesn't have to be divorced, but classically would be a few of them. You would go, you would be with strangers. Attached to it would be lawyers, mediators, psychiatrists, psychotherapists. You have privacy, you have places your kids can come and visit you, and a big shared kitchen in the middle in my head. But you can only stay 6 months, and then you have to go out. But you get kinder quicker. Your friends stop pitying you and start envying you. That sort of thing, which is a male requirement. I mean, over nearly half of all marriages break, and there's no thought for what happens to classically the man.
And they're afraid to talk to their friends.
Yeah, because they hold it against you.
Yeah, well, they feel embarrassed.
Yeah, but strangers going through a similar thing, you can watch Bake Off together, cry together, and football.
And arguably it would reduce the amount of violence towards women as well. And it would,
that's what I'm just saying.
Yeah, exactly,
I think that's such an obvious thing.
Yeah.
And my company starts with bollocks because no one talks about balls.
Mm.
It's forgotten unless somebody wants to get pregnant or something. It's not on the agenda.
They're not particularly
they're not particularly pleasant to look at or anything else. George Clooney's had his race.
Has he really?
Yeah.
George Clooney. George must have gone.
I don't know. All right, I don't really want to know, but I read that.
I know, but you wouldn't expect him. You'd expect him to be sitting here with us.
All I'm saying is it's not anti anybody else, and it's not poor men. It's just looking at it and saying, okay, what do we need in this modern day? But I haven't got the money for that now.
The government needs to kind of do some of that though as well.
Definitely, I would love to be involved in that.
NHS
I'd love to be involved in that. But yeah, that kind of aspiration is a genuine one, rather than posturing.
Would you like a statue made of you?
No, I don't really want to be remembered.
Really?
No, what's the point? I'm just enjoying being here, thanks.
Right.
That's enough. I'm not looking for a legacy. I would like to do some good in the world. One of my things about charities, for instance, is there's a charity in the book which uses children's paintings and sells them from weird parts of the world. There's a story on the back, and it's all got trustees to make sure no one's setting out sweatshops. But Athena died out many years ago, and art is too ethereal for most people to have the nerve to go to a gallery. But online, if you had children's art from around the world, this one's from Tehran, this is Afghanistan. Right. There's a story attached to it, and it goes with the curtains. And that money goes back to the communities. The thing I love about that, and the thing I hate about charity advertising, is the blackmail of, here's a donkey that's carrying too much, look, it's crippled. Here's a poor baby drinking shit in water. But it's too much. It's too much blackmail and emotion. And I think charities should consider the idea of selling things that people want and need and use the profits for charity. So it becomes self-sustaining and not begging.
I worked with Brand Aid Project in Haiti. We went in there before the earthquake. We actually had to abandon when the earthquake happened because the place was full of charity people.
Right.
But it was just taking like these guys who temper old oil cans in the fire, and then they make them into these beautiful sort of mirrors and stuff like that. And we branded them.
That's great.
Put them online.
See,
and they're making them for the tourists that aren't in Haiti, right?
Exactly. But also, you're doing some good.
Yeah.
You're getting what you want. You feel good.
Yeah.
I've been working on a business called Charity Bay, which collects, instead of you having to go to a charity shop, we come to you with Uber.
Yeah. Brilliant.
And your stuff. You can say which charities.
Why do that?
Because I'm genius, but they're not. I'm not genius either, by the way.
No, I know you're joking, but
why
don't Uber just add that to their CSR?
I'm just saying, but there's so many ideas out there, mate.
All right, what do you say to your? Which one will we pick? The one that's under the table thinking. What do you say to him?
I'd say to have faith. Actually,
we're going back to religion.
No, it's not faith.
I'm joking.
God.
It would have been a lovely
I'm
rounded
more
circle.
dog than God.
It would have been a lovely rounded circle.
Yeah, I would. I love that whole thing at the end of AA meetings or NA meetings or whatever, about grant me the wisdom to not try and change the things I cannot change.
Yeah.
That, for me, gives you focus to actually do the things you can do.
Yeah.
And hope that the world will come your way.
Exactly. Yeah.
And, actually that faith, it doesn't always work out, but it's quite exciting. And no one else cares. It's only you.
Links to his book and his charity and his hubby hub and his new bollock department products are listed with the Durden podcast. Thank you very much for being on the show. Thank you for your honesty on the way that we did it.
I enjoyed it too. Thank you.
There may be trouble ahead, but while there's moonlight and music and love and romance, let's face the music and dance. Before the fiddlers have fled, before they ask us to pay the bill, and while we still have the chance, let's face the music and dance. Soon we'll be without the moon, humming a different tune, and then there may be teardrops to shed. So while there's moonlight and music and love and romance, let's face the music and dance. Let's face the music and dance. The moon, humming a different tune, and then there may be teardrops to shed. So while there's moonlight and music and love and romance, let's face the music and dance. Let's face the music and dance.